Someone once said this: none of us is as smart as all of us. And in my second part today of my devotion series on wisdom, I really want to follow up from last time where we talked about fear of the Lord, or awe of God, being the beginning of wisdom, which leads us into this second part, which is talking about how we can learn and grow from one another. That's the way that God always works it. He wants us to look to him, but he also wants us to look to one another. And as we are birthed into a community of faith, birthed into a community of believers, that's not just so that we can worship God together, but it's so that we can learn and grow from one another. Iron truly sharpening iron. And there are some things that I want to share today that will hopefully help us avoid the pitfalls that, quote unquote, foolish people fall into. The book of Proverbs has a lot to say about wise and foolish people, and we don't want to be foolish people. We want to be wise people. And here are some things that we can avoid falling into. The first thing is this, is that people who are foolish think they understand everything when they don't. The biggest pitfall is to think that you know it all. The biggest pitfall is to think that you have worked everything out. The biggest pitfall is to think that solutions that you had in the past will be the same solutions for now. We use this phrase, don't we, about being stuck in a rut or behind the times. And so often we can fall into a trap where we had knowledge for a particular situation and we think that that knowledge is going to be the same 20 years later or 30 years later. We have to keep growing. We have to keep learning. We have to realize that the wisdom that we may have had might not be the wisdom that we need for now. Another pitfall that we must avoid is ignoring wise counsel when we hear it. Oh my goodness, how many times have I heard some good advice from someone, and whether that be through stubbornness or just arrogance or whatever it may be, I just choose to ignore it. I choose to bury my head in the sand and think I've got this all figured out myself. I don't need anybody else. Like we said before, none of us is as smart as all of us. And whilst we may have wisdom to contribute to the whole, others will have wisdom that will contribute into our own lives. And sometimes we just need to hear it from somebody else to give us a kick up the backside that we often need. Another pitfall that we must avoid is not learning from our mistakes, or digging in deeper and deeper, digging that hole deeper and deeper. On Sunday, Sean talked about King David briefly as part of her message. And it's really interesting when I think about King David and King Saul. We can so often paint David as this amazing guy who did nothing wrong, and Saul as this guy that made all the mistakes in the world. But they both messed up big time. But the difference, the fundamental difference between the two, was that Saul didn't learn from his mistakes. He kept making the same mistakes over and over. David learned. David repented. David fell on his knees in humility, and God forgave him. And that's what caused God to call him a man after my own heart. So when we think about wisdom, it starts with the fear of the Lord, but it then moves into learning and growing from one another. And my encouragement for you today and for all time is be a person that is committed to the whole. Be a person that is committed to learning from others, growing from others, getting that experience and learning from our own mistakes so that we don't fall into those bad habits. God bless you.